These are our solar panels. We had these installed along with batteries on the side of the house just over a year ago now. They've been absolutely fantastic. We've saved/earned about £3,000 in 1 year, so that's been amazing. But do I have any regrets? Well, okay, just a little system recap then. We have 30 panels on the roof. It's an east-west roof. These are REA Fusion 2 panels built in Australia, and that's 13.5 kilowatt peak power we get from these. I stress the built in Australia bit because so many people talk about Chinese solar panels and all the rest of it, but no, these are Australian. The batteries are Chinese though. Yes, we still have the fairy lights up. All right, so on the side of the house, 2 AlphaESS batteries and inverters, and this is 20 kilowatt hours in total, or around 20 kilowatt hours in total of storage. And then you've got 2 5 kilowatt inverters. And because these are linked in parallel, that means that you get a 10 kilowatt inverter and 20 kilowatt hours of storage. So that's the system we've got. We've been absolutely thrilled with it, or I've been thrilled with it. My wife doesn't really care, does she? But I've been thrilled with it. We got it with Heatable, and they were fantastic. And use my little codes on screen if you want to get a quote with Heatable and get some money off while you're at it. So the moment we moved in October 2024, I started getting quotes. And at the time, it was really just between the Tesla Powerwall 3 and the AlphaESS. They were the 2 that Heatable were offering at the time, although they just started offering the Sigenstor, really just at the time that I signed the paperwork. And the Sigenstor really is the battery that everyone seems to be talking about at the moment, so that's like the hot new one. Now, all 3 batteries are LFP, which is a great thing. LFP batteries, if you don't know, is the type of battery chemistry that doesn't contain cobalt and nickel. So apart from the fact it makes them cheaper, it also means that they're less flammable. They're very safe. LFP batteries, you can put a nail inside them and they won't explode, which is a good thing. And also, there's no nickel and cobalt, which means that you don't have to worry about African kids mining them in the DRC. All 3 batteries, they're all fantastic. Why did I go for Alpha? When we started the whole journey, I did do a video and I did go into my reasoning for getting the Alpha over the Tesla. The main reason was cost, because the Alpha system was just much cheaper. You get far more battery storage for the money. And because we have electric radiators, they cost a lot to run. I just felt like battery storage was the main thing, really. So let's go through a few possible regrets. Are there regrets? I don't know. You might think they're regrets, I'm not sure. So regret number 1, or possible regret number 1, battery positioning. As you can see, these batteries are outside, and on a day like today, that's absolutely fine. In fact, on most days, to be honest, that's absolutely fine. But the problem with having batteries outside is that they're more susceptible to freezing temperatures. And these batteries, in fact, I think all LFP batteries, they don't like the cold very much. Who does? Especially not LFP batteries. Now, the way battery manufacturers get around this is by having an integrated battery heater. The Tesla Powerwall 3 has that. The Sigenstor has that. But the AlphaESS does not, or did not. This one didn't. The new one does. So what happens then? Well, in freezing temperatures, this just stops working. It doesn't power the house, and any solar power doesn't go into the battery. It just stops working, shuts down, until it gets warm enough to start working again. And I think it was about -3 for us. It was about -3 that the kind of cut-off happened. I think they say that anything under 0 and all bets are off and it might stop working. So I was lucky that it kept going for as long as it did. That could have just been some residual heat from charging the batteries through the night. I don't know, but perhaps we were a bit lucky that we only just got the 3 days of it not working. If this was a more exposed spot, because we've got a fence there, so it's fairly sheltered, I suppose. If it was more exposed, then perhaps that would have been worse for it. So this is a very long, drawn-out way of saying, should I have just put this in the garage? Because had I put it in the garage, it still would have been very cold, of course, but it wouldn't have been freezing in there. So perhaps I should have done that. Mains electricity comes in just over there, so I thought, well, the cable run was going to be a little bit easier, probably. But that wouldn't have been too big a deal. I don't think it would have changed the price massively, if at all, to put it in the garage. So why didn't I? So here's the very messy garage. There's room there, wouldn't have been a problem. Now my feeling was that it might potentially get too hot in here in summer, and that's because the garage door is south facing, and in the summer this garage gets absolutely boiling, and I'm not sure that would have been very good for the batteries. I mean, I'm sure they would have worked fine, perhaps they would have had no problem at all, I don't know, but I just felt that it was a bit better to keep them on the outside. Now of course the drawback with them being outside is they get dirty. And one regret I do actually have is that they were perhaps put a little bit too close to the floor. Do you believe that? It's fine, it just means I've got to wipe them quite a lot. Now, although there's no difference in the battery warranty if they are placed outside, obviously they are getting hit by weather and dust and all the rest of it, so quite whether they'll last as long out here as in the garage, I don't know. I was considering building something to put around it just to shelter it a bit more, which I could, but I'm always so busy I haven't got around to doing that. But maybe I will. If it looks like we're going to have a really bad winter, then maybe I'll do that. So if you're watching this and you're thinking of getting an Alpha battery, but you're worried about the whole battery heater thing, don't, because the new ones have a battery heater, so you'll be absolutely fine. So regret number 2. As I said, it's 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage we've got, which sounds like quite a lot, doesn't it, really? Now, it's clear that our house in winter was going to use a lot of electricity because of the electric radiators, bane of my life, but I wasn't really expecting it to be quite as bad as it was. We used 1,451 kilowatt hours of electricity just for the heating, just in January. That's a lot, isn't it? So if you divide that by 31, that's an average of 47 kilowatt hours a day. So clearly 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage doesn't cut it, does it? So we would find that really quite early in the morning, from like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m, the battery would be gone, and then from that moment onwards, you're relying on solar, if you even have solar at that time of year, or you're relying on the grid. So that's obviously not ideal. Now, it would have been nice then to expand the battery storage, but I got a quote from Heatable, and they said that would be about £8,000 to double the storage up to 40 kilowatt hours. 40 kilowatt hours would have been great. I mean, that would have almost sorted us for most of the days in winter, I think. But I couldn't justify spending £8,000. I mean, when you think about the payback just on that, you would have to be in the house for a long, long time for that to be worthwhile. So that's why I didn't do that. However, it would be nice to have a system where if we came into some money, which never happens, but if we came into some money and I thought, well, you know, I'm going to spend a few thousand on a battery upgrade, it would be nice to be able to do that myself. But you can't upgrade this yourself. You still need an installer to do it. And the same is true, as far as I'm aware, the same is true for the Powerwall, and the same is even true for the Sigenstor, even though I think they almost market that as a bit more of an upgradable modular plug-and-play system. I don't believe it is plug-and-play. I think you still have to get an installer to come in and do that, which is a shame. But I am sure there are battery systems out there that do make it much easier to upgrade them. And tell me in the comments if there are. So, regret number 3, going for an AlphaESS system. If you follow my journey from the start, you'll know that I've had a few issues with the Alpha. Now, it started with an inverter problem, but they were very, very quick to replace one of the inverters that was faulty. But on top of that issue, I've had issues with the reporting. You see there's a bit there that says profit. We have not made £4,140 profit. And I know it says profit, I mean really it means savings and earnings, doesn't it? That is not even close to what we've made or saved. I don't know the technical details, but because they're linked in parallel, that's the problem. And it's quite rare to have these linked in parallel, actually. So most people, if you get an Alpha system, it's probably going to be set up differently. It's not going to be parallel, and you won't have any issues with the reporting. So just bear that one in mind. So in terms of regrets, do I regret getting an Alpha system for those reasons? Not really, because it's good enough in every other way, and support seems very good. So I think I'm happy with it overall. But talking about the support, I have an issue at the moment where the solar just drops out, and it happens every day, really. It happens. It just drops out for no reason. Sometimes I get a little message actually appear. I'll flash it up on screen, something about G99 a G99 limit or something like that. I contacted Alpha through the app, because you can do a support ticket through the app, and they came back to me the next day. The system stopped charging and discharging because of multiple instances of high grid voltage. That's something that they said is an issue with the DNO, the District Network Operator. Is that right? Which is UK Power Networks in my case. I've also got an issue with the Zappi, and the Zappi keeps coming up with a PE fault, which is a protective earth fault. So I did think, well, maybe the two are connected. So I contacted UK Power Networks. You can go onto their website and you can tell them that there's a voltage issue. And they came out, again, quite quickly, really. It was just a few days I had to wait. They came out, they checked it, and they said that everything is fine. In terms of support, I think Alpha seemed to be very good. And actually, that's one of the things that Heatable said to me early on, is that they said that Alpha support is really good. And that's one of the reasons that they like installing them, and that's why they recommend their kit. So based on my experience, I can attest to that. So it's sod's law that just as I filmed this video, the whole thing breaks. I had a lovely red error light on the inverters, and it just wasn't doing anything. It wasn't generating any solar, and it wasn't powering the house from the battery. So I got in contact with Alpha, and to their credit, they responded very quickly with a message to say that they're looking into it. And then about one day after that, they responded again to say that it had been fixed. And the reason was that they had done some sort of remote software update, and that had made it break. So at least they admitted it, but I don't know what the update was. But anyway, it's fine now. It just means that, you know, that cost us, what, I don't know, about £10 probably, using the grid for that sort of day and a half that it was out of action. So a bit frustrating, really. But anyway, at least they were quick to sort it. So that's okay. However, the really good news is they've just updated the app. And I knew this was coming because someone told me that the app had updated in Australia, I think it was, quite a while ago. So they must have been testing it in Australia. And now we've got it. Now, the problem is that, of course, I've done loads of footage with the old app, and now I've got to learn where everything is. But anyway, it seems fairly good. But the big thing, and the best thing for me, really, is this. So here it is, and it's all looking much, much fancier, I think. If we go to energy. It all feels much slicker, I've got to say. And we've got nice little icons we can click up there. That all looks good. But yeah, the big thing is that this £8.37, that's how much apparently we've kind of saved and made today. I like that they're calling it impact, they're not calling it profit. So £8.37 today, is that correct? Well, if I work out these figures very roughly, then yes, it is. I'm pretty confident that now, if I go to the total, that is actually pretty close, if not exactly, what we've saved and made, to £3,508. If that's accurate, and I actually think it probably is now, that's really good. And our payback is under 6 years based on that. So, isn't that great? Although obviously it would be nice if it didn't go wrong. If it does go wrong, like it did for me, at least they fixed it in like a day and a half. So I'm happy with that. But what's really impressive is the other day we generated 72 kilowatt hours from our solar panels. That's the most we've ever generated. And I haven't even cleaned them. So isn't that fantastic? 72 kilowatt hours in one day. The biggest reason why Alpha was a consideration and why I'm still happy with the choice, and this is not a regret, is you get a lot for your money with Alpha. So I asked Heatable for some prices. If you go for a 14.4 kilowatt hour Alpha battery, you're looking at £5,490. To be honest, I'm not sure whether this includes installation. But anyway, the Sig battery, 15 kilowatt hour, is £7,995. The Tesla 13.5 kilowatt hour, £7,395. Alpha, I don't think, do the sizes that I've got here anymore. So to compare it with this is a bit difficult, but 19.2 kilowatt hour Alpha system would be 8,080. The Sig for an 18 kilowatt hour is 8,645. My priority is to get as much battery storage for the best cost. And I think that's where the Alpha's really won there. And it means I'm very happy with this. And I certainly don't consider this a regret, despite my moaning about the Alpha app with the profit and things. I think overall this has been a good move. Regret number 4, gateway. So the Tesla Powerwall is famous for having something called a gateway, and a gateway takes your house off grid if the power goes out. So you could have a power cut, your whole street could be out, all the houses, all the street lights could be off. You would be the smug git with your lights on, cooking your dinner, looking at your Tesla app and probably tweeting about it as well. So that's what Tesla owners have had, I think, since day one really, with the Powerwall. So that was a big consideration when I was choosing which battery to go for. So the Tesla has that. The Sigenstor actually has that as well. That has a gateway. The Alpha doesn't. At least it hasn't up until now, because I'm very, very happy to say that Alpha are now releasing a gateway which works with the Smile, which is what I've got. So that's really good news. Now, is this actually an issue? Well, we've had quite a few power cuts here, but most of them have been quite small. So it started, I think we had our first power cut in November 2024, I think, and that lasted 3 hours. And then we had an hour in February, and since then we've had 8 power cuts. All have been less than 5 minutes in duration. So probably not enough to worry about, and arguably not enough to justify the cost of the gateway. I've got to say that I don't know what the cost of the gateway actually is with the Alpha yet. They haven't released the pricing for it. It does come as part of the Tesla install, I think. I think you have to install the Tesla with the gateway, actually. So that is a big bonus for the Tesla, of course. But yeah, I don't know what it's going to be for the Alpha. So should we have got another battery that had the gateway? I don't know. I'm not sure it would have been worth the extra cost. Now, especially now, I've actually taken the office off grid, because it's more important for me that the computer doesn't go offline suddenly and I might lose some work. So the office is now off grid with an EcoFlow stream battery. Watch my video about that if you haven't seen it already. But the big one really is the kitchen, because the kitchen is obviously where you probably want your power more than anywhere else. With the Alpha battery, you can actually set it up with an EPS, so you can have just one circuit that's powered from the battery all the time. So if the power goes out, you've still got one circuit in your house that's working. So I did ask the installers about the possibility of doing the EPS, but I think it being a parallel system makes it a little more complicated. So anyway, time passed and I didn't go through with that anyway. So far I'm kind of happy, but that is I suppose that's one of the things that, you know, I do look at people posting their screenshots of their Powerwall apps and I think, yeah, you know, the whole gateway thing is very cool. So that would be nice. And that is the kind of the main thing really that made me consider the Tesla at the time. But, you know, 13.5 kilowatt hours of storage on the Tesla compared to 20, I just thought 20 kilowatt hours is more important, I think, than having protection in power cuts. So as I said, we've got 30 panels on the roof, but you'll see that there is actually a little bit of space there, and we could fit another 4 onto there, which is a nice idea. So what's that? Another 1800 watts we could potentially put on there. But I don't know if it would be worth it. And the reason is, in summer, this generates a lot. The battery gets filled really quickly. And then from that moment onwards, we're feeding back everything to the grid. Anything that the house isn't using, we're just feeding back to the grid. But we have a 10 kilowatt export limit. And we get pretty close to that. Anything more than that, you just get clipped. So it means that you're not sending anything more back to the grid. So at least in summer, that extra capacity isn't really going to help us very much. Now in winter, it might, because in winter, the generation is pretty rubbish. As I said, it's east-west. So it might help, but I'm not even convinced it would that much. We've got trees here, and because the sun is quite low, if the panels were there, I don't know if we would really generate that much. So, although panels are pretty cheap, really, and ordinarily I would advise you to just fill your roof if you can, because once you've paid for the scaffolding and you've got the people installing it, adding a few more panels is not going to make much difference, you know, in terms of the cost. For us, I don't think it would have been worth it, really. So that's why we didn't go ahead with that. Might have been useful in winter, but summer it would have been pointless, I think. I did trim this cherry tree, but clearly not enough. So yeah, there is some shading there. I know you're going to mention it in the comments, but yeah, I've really got to halve it, I think. So, regret number 6, the final regret. Should we have got a heat pump first instead of the solar and battery? So I'm very fortunate to get a lot of comments from very enthusiastic viewers, so thank you very much if you comment. And I think probably the number one comment was, why on earth did we not get a heat pump instead of the solar and battery? Because the heating is your main use of energy in your house. And does it not make more sense to improve that before you start spending money on solar and batteries? And I had 2 reasons for not getting the heat pump first. Firstly, I was really thinking that an air-to-air heat pump would be the easiest install for this bungalow. And we had it at our previous house. I liked it more than my wife did, but I still think it was the positioning that she had a problem with. But it's a cheaper install to get air-to-air because we have electric radiators. We have no wet system here, no wet plumbing system, no central heating at all. And heat pumps are much cheaper if you're reusing pipework and reusing radiators where possible. So we couldn't do that here. So it would be a fresh install, which is quite a lot of money. In fact, it would be about the same as the solar and battery. So we'd be looking at around £19,000. An air-to-air heat pump would have been much cheaper, probably more like £10,000, maybe a bit less. It was £8,000, I think, £9,000 maybe in our previous house. Now, the reason I was delaying that is I knew that there was a possibility that there would be a grant for air-to-air, because up until now there hasn't been. You could have air-to-water heat pump, so a standard heat pump, but you couldn't have air-to-air with the government grant, which knocks off several thousand. So I was kind of waiting for that. I was thinking that might happen, and it is going to happen. If it hasn't happened already, it is going to happen. So that makes the whole air-to-air heat pump a bit more sensible. So because there was this kind of uncertainty a little bit, I didn't want to go ahead and commit to a heat pump until I knew what was happening with that. But at the same time, I didn't want to waste a whole winter not doing anything at all. So I wanted there to be either a heat pump or the solar and battery, just to try and reduce the bills a bit. And I'm really glad we did, because as I said, we've saved a lot of money. And a lot of the savings that we've made have come from obviously using solar and battery to heat the house. And in the cold months, that's been fantastic. So that was one reason. So the other reason is I really wanted to treat this as a bit of an experiment. I wanted to see what it was like to live in the house for a few months just with electric radiators, and then see what kind of difference it makes to the bills having solar and battery installed. And then, if we're fortunate enough to get a heat pump, then we can see just how low we can get the bills. I mean, can we get this to a zero bill house? Obviously, you wouldn't get 0 bills every month, but over the year, could we get to a 0 bill house? I think we can, if we can just get a heat pump. So that's the discussion I've got to have with my wife. Yeah, I would love a heat pump, really. I think it would be fantastic. And it would then make the house about as eco as we can possibly get. That's really the plan. And I think it would be great to see that we've started moving into this house with it being about as energy intensive as a house can be, because electric radiators, although they're 100% efficient in terms of every bit of energy you put into it, you get out again. So they're not bad in that respect, but it's just electricity is expensive, more expensive than gas, much more expensive than gas in this country for some reason. And so we've lived in the house with expensive radiators. We've lived in the house with expensive radiators plus the solar and battery. It would be lovely to then get rid of them, put the heat pump in, and see what happens. So stay tuned for that. So we moved in October 2024, had all this installed April 2025. So maybe my biggest regret is actually not doing it sooner. So there it is, there's my list of regrets, except it's not really regrets, is it? It's just a list of choices that I've made, which hopefully you agree with all of them or some of them, but I would love to know in the comments if you don't. And I think that's probably the end of the video. So yeah, if I could do it all over again, I would probably still go for the Alpha. If we had a bigger budget, then I would go for the Sig, I think. But we don't have a bigger budget, so I didn't. And I'm still very happy. And I'm still very happy with Heatable, of course. So if you are considering getting a solar or battery system, then do get a quote from Heatable and use the code in the video description and on screen at the moment to get some money off. They've been fantastic with me, and I hear so much good feedback about Heatable that I'm sure you'll be very happy with them if you go for them. But whatever you do, whoever you go with, do try to get solar and batteries, because I say this in every video now, but my God, if you want to insulate yourself a bit from the ridiculous energy costs that are going up all the time because of crazy people in the world, then I think it helps to have solar and battery on your house. So I'll leave it there. I'm not going to get political. And yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. Please press the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of other videos. And I'll be back very soon. Bye for now.